what is the most interesting thing you have experienced working as a nurse you never thought you would have experienced if you hadn't worked in this field? I have been thinking all day about how I'm going to answer this question, because when I first read it this morning, I just had so many stories flooding into my brain, and I'm like, I don't know which one to share. But I have landed on one 9 hours-ish later, and it's about a patient who dislocated his shoulder. So when you dislocate your shoulder, it is extremely painful, and the muscles tense up around in that area. The patient's in a lot of pain, so they're tensing up. So what we do is we give them an IV, and we give them lots of yummy medications to calm them down and to relax those muscles, because the physician needs to do a bunch of movements to pop that back into, the socket, into the position. So this is actually a story from when I was deployed, and we had a patient who we gave a whole bunch of meds to. He didn't speak English. He spoke a different language, and he had a bunch of his buddies there who also spoke his language. They actually translated for us some things that he said, but most of the time they were laughing their heads off. They thought he was so funny, and it was kind of awkward because I couldn't understand what this patient was saying, but just looking at his friends, I mean, they were busting. But what makes this an even more unique situation is our ER physician, who should be able to get this shoulder back into its socket, was really struggling. And this happens sometimes. It's not his fault. And it requires a lot of muscle. That ER physician really needs to rotate and move that shoulder in a way so that, that arm pops back in. Excuse me. So after so much time, he calls in help, because we have an orthopedic surgeon who is also on call, and they pulled him in as well. And these aren't small people. These are big guys, like big muscly guys, tall guys. And this patient was relatively a small dude. And these, they had tried so many different positions to get this poor guy's shoulder back into place. But at one point, we had the ER physician standing over top of him on the bed, sort of standing, trying to hold his body into place and keep him in place, while the orthopedic surgeon was standing on the top of the bed with his foot in his armpit, trying to, leverage that arm back in. It was quite a sight to see. And it eventually popped back in, but between these two big physicians on top of this patient trying to move him into place, and his friends laughing hysterically, like, you'll never see that in real life if you weren't a nurse.